Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Bayonetta 2 walkthrough. It's time for even more Tag Climax. And I still haven't learned my lesson yet of just give Jeanne Kafka. Although it's not technically Kafka because she has her own version. Basically, all of Jeanne's weapons are identical to, but have different names to Bayonetta's. So, exactly the same movesets and all that jazz, but just... yeah, they just have different names for some bizarre reason. Now, you may be wondering, why is this part slightly longer than the other part, considering you're probably only doing about 2 rounds of Tag Climax in this? Well, something a little funny happened that I wasn't quite expecting. Because when recording this was kind of my first time ever playing Tag Climax, because I'm pretty sure that I never actually touched it when I played the game the first time round. Largely because it was just like, well, I don't care because I don't really want to get everything. And that was mostly because I was like, well, I know I'm going to do a walkthrough of it eventually, so there's no point in wasting my time now. So I wasn't quite aware of how all the mechanics worked, and it was in through kind of playing it and trying to get the verse card that unlocked Sapientia that I kind of found out about the whole random cards unlock randomly. Although it's not quite randomly, it's after like every 16-ish verses or so. So you're going to get to see one of them, but it's not quite going to go well, let's put it that way. Now I say that I love that they brought Tag Climax into Bayonetta 2, and it's really nice to have sort of a co-op thing to play about with. My only wish is that it's been possible to do like a local multiplayer. I mean, it's not the end of the world, because, I mean, I think I understand why it didn't happen. Why, kind of it had to be online. It's because you kind of wanted an entire screen for yourself, and also because Bayonetta is a very intensive game. I think trying to run 2 separate screens in on a single console would just ruin it and just be so difficult. Now, this is one of the verses that I was talking about. So after, as I said, every 16, 14, it's around that kind of area, you will kind of be given the option of taking on an extra verse that's not normally there. One of them is against Noatun, and he's a challenge. I mean, he's massively gimped from what he was like during the game when we fought alongside of him, but he's still incredibly quick, incredibly powerful, and just... you have got to be on it. And just... oh, good grief. I made a terrible decision in coming into this with Scarborough Fair, because, like, I'm not used to fighting with it anymore. So, it just doesn't end well. Having said that, I did surprisingly well for my first time fighting Noatun ever. Because I had absolutely no idea what was coming. And I got ridiculously close to defeating him, as you can see. Unfortunately, he killed Jeanne, and then in my attempts to revive her, he just kind of wrecked my shit. Is the only way I can describe it. So, yeah. At this point I was just like, do I kind of redo those first two verses? And then I was just like, nope. Nope, can't be bothered. So, I will just leave in that death. Because I need to show you kind of that there is difficult stuff in here, and also that you do just want to continue after everything, because it's so much simpler. Now, the voice you heard saying, "The shadow remains cast," is Jenny O'Hara, who is the voice of the Umbran Elder in the original Bayonetta, and either they brought her back just to do that particular line for Bayonetta 2, or they just kind of reused the audio. But basically, I think she's mostly done stuff on stage, but she has been in movies like Career Opportunities, A Mother's Prayer, Mystic River, Matchstick Men, Extract, and Devil. Was part of The Facts of Life. My Sister Sam had guest roles on Kojak, Charlie's Angels, Kun Martin's Tales of the Unexpected, or as it's apparently known in the UK, Twist in the Tail. Barney Miller, Law and Order, Beverly Hills, 90210, NYPD Blue, ER House, MD, Reba, 6 Feet Under, and Big Love, as well as being Doug Heffernan's mother, Janet Heffernan, in the sitcom The King of Queens. And funny story is that for the longest time nobody knew who the hell voiced the Umbran Elder. Like, it just was not brought up. Because obviously, in the original credits of Bayonetta, they didn't list any of the voice actors. Partially because they apparently forgot, but the kind of... I suspect that the main reason that they didn't put the voice actors is because the mother of the little girl who played Cereza didn't want her to be credited. I think because she didn't want her to be kind of forever and always associated with a game in which you play as a witch who strips to kill angels. So, I suspect that might be part of the reason. But, yeah, so we never knew the voices of, like, the Umbran Elder because nobody asked or cared. And then I was kind of doing and preparing for my Bayonetta walkthrough, which was about 2 years ago now, maybe 3. Actually, I think it was 3 because it was 2012. Good grief. I actually sent a tweet to Hideki Kamiya and asked him who voices the Umbran Elder, because I don't think it's ever been announced. And then he told me that it was Jenny O'Hara, and that was just like, oh, this is nice. Actually found out something very interesting, which is just great. And as we go through kind of just more of everything in Tag Climax, I guess now is a good time to bring up Bayonetta Bloody Fate, which is the anime based on the first game. So, it was released November the 23rd, 2013 in Japan. It's apparently actually released in Japanese theatres, which is really cool. And then it got released on DVD and Blu-ray on Valentine's Day 2014. However, we didn't get it here in the West until kind of reasonably recently, like, I think early this year, actually. But what's really cool is that pretty much the majority of the cast return from the game. So you have Helena Taylor as Bayonetta, Grey Delisle as Jeanne, Dave Fennoy as Rodin, Yuri Lowenthal as Luca. You have Richard Epcar being the narrator, again, which is awesome. And Bayonetta Bloody Fate provides the first appearance of John Kassir as voicing Enzo, because Chick Fanera had retired from acting at that point, and so kind of he took over that role and then obviously returned for Bayonetta 2. However, Jade Grant Albrecht returns as Father Boulder as well. You do have some different people, so Joy Gillian is the voice of Cereza, and Victoria Harwood is the Umbran Elder, and you also have Patrick Seitz as Antonio Redgrave. But it's cool that kind of pretty much all the main cast are there. There are some slightly weird line reads in it, which I will chalk completely down to voice direction, because while, like, Platinum are phenomenal at getting kind of the best possible line readings out of their actors and actresses, and they know the sound that they want, and they keep it consistent, whereas I don't think that Bloody Fate had that level of consistency. Quick spin away from Bloody Fate for a moment, because we have our fight against Worship, which is the massive combo wonder. And I don't know whether you'll see it quite in this run, but we will be getting absolute masses of halos from this fight alone. It's phenomenal. Now, I think in general, Bayonetta Bloody Fate has had a rather mixed reception. I mean, I have a rather mixed response to it, because it's like, it's really cool and all, and moments of it are really brilliantly animated. It's just, I feel that it lacks a certain element of the cheesiness that is there in the games. Like, you have the wonderful moment at the beginning of the film where they play, I think it's Mysterious Destiny, and it's just hilarious and great. But then it never kind of manages to keep that level of cheesy fun about it. It gets quite anime serious. And for all of the fact that Bayonetta does take its story seriously, in the sense of it's incredibly sincere, I think is the way I would describe it. Bayonetta's entire kind of presentation of its narrative is sincere without being serious. So it's capable of being both completely ridiculous, but also quite epic. I think it was Jim Sterling who actually used that phrasing in his Bayonetta 2 review, and it's something that I completely think is correct. So, the problem that Bloody Fate has is that it takes itself seriously. And that just makes things awkward. Because just... yeah... It just feels a little bit flat sometimes. And it doesn't help that certain moments become ridiculously more perverted than anything in the games, because there's a shower scene, and there's a moment where kind of Luca comes into Bayonetta's hotel room and she's kind of completely naked apart from some hair covering, kind of just hanging over the breasts, and that's it. So yes, I have mixed feelings about Bayonetta Bloody Fate, but it is a really good representation of the games, and certainly something that you should check out if you get the chance, because it's always nice to see kind of alternate renderings of the things that you love. I mean, sometimes it's not the best thing in the world, because alternate renderings can ruin everything. But I say that Bayonetta Bloody Fate kind of walks a decent enough line where it's not kind of awful, and it's good. And it also does some kind of very, actually, brilliant things with the original Bayonetta's story, because it makes Balder much more involved in the whole Jubileus arc, because he's actually aiding in the fight rather than just being completely consumed into the eye. And also there's just a massive fight in space between Jubileus and Queen Sheba, which is just completely off-the-wall bonkers. And now we've got wonderful fight against Insidious. As you can see, sort of, one of the rather frustrating things with Tide Climax is that you do take damage so quickly, and the amount of damage enemies do is huge. So particularly, you are going to be babysitting your computer ally quite a lot, because they are probably going to get killed quite a lot. Thankfully, they will also babysit you and save you if you die, but it's just the balance of kind of getting everything all correct is a little bit odd, and you probably are a lot better off fighting alongside a human companion if you want to kind of get through the more challenging variants of these verses. But then if you want the halos, then you are better off alone. It's sort of just a case of deciding which you want to do more, really, I guess. Now, quickly returning to the Bayonetta Bloody Fate anime and stuff, I would really like to see kind of more Bayonetta merchandise out there. Because, I mean, as a franchise, it's got a lot going for it. I mean, I absolutely cannot wait for the Eyes of Bayonetta 2 to be released in the West, because the Eyes of Bayonetta 1 was wonderful. So, kind of an Eyes of Bayonetta 2 coming west would just be even better, because, like, I mean, the Eyes of Bayonetta 1 had so much information in it, and, like, it just blew my mind. Like, I mean, seeing, like, the original designs and attempts at designing Bayonetta just fascinating. Because sort of there were so many various kind of potential looks. I mean, I think at one point Bayonetta potentially could have been a redhead, and then they kind of killed that quite quickly. But then also sort of some of the designs were very, very, very risque, and she was actually wearing even less clothes than she is kind of in both Bayonetta 1 and Bayonetta 2. There was somewhere it was just sort of very, very small bits of hair covering stuff, and that was about it. But the one thing that I do find to be really quite awesome is that the one picture that they had, which they kind of centered on as being, this is what we want to go for, actually ends up getting sort of used in her Bayonetta 2 design. Because what it is sort of, there's a lot of hair kind of falling all around, kind of down to kind of just below the breasts and kind of all around and flowing. She doesn't have kind of the long hair sleeves that she ends up with in the original Bayonetta. And then obviously, come Bayonetta 2, they kind of went back to that design of having the hair kind of coming off the shoulders, more so. They just kind of changed the hairstyle and kind of other elements of the costume, but brought it back to that, which I do quite like. I still think kind of the hair sleeves are a wonderful design idea, and they look so cool. But I do like that sort of they made use of stuff in Bayonetta 2 that they couldn't get into Bayonetta 1. I mean, as proven by Valiance, and I think in Rapture. There are quite a number of angels in Bayonetta 2 that potentially could have gotten used in Bayonetta 1, but they didn't get a chance to include them. So, kind of, it furthers the idea that Bayonetta 2 is kind of the other side of a Bayonetta coin. Because it's sort of, the first and second games interact with each other, both in a narrative manner, but also in a gameplay manner, and a kind of concept manner. Which is wonderful, really. And I mean, I'm going to be saying this probably quite a lot. I would love to see sort of where a third game would take them all, and how they would incorporate everything, whether there were any, I mean, probably some stuff in the Bayonetta 2, Eyes of Bayonetta 2 would suggest things that potentially could show up in a Bayonetta 3. Because Platinum like to kind of push everything to the limit, and so they'll want to kind of use as many of their ideas as possible. But with that rather wonderful pure Platinum, that's another round of Tag Climax out the way. 4 more parts of this to go. This was a silly idea on my part, but oh well. It'll all be fine.